Welcome to today's exploration of the human psyche and our complex relationship with social interaction through the lens of Carl Jung's profound psychological theories. In today's modern world, where constant connectivity and availability are often praised as virtues, many of us silently wrestle with a paradoxical experience: the sudden, almost overwhelming desire to withdraw from social obligations. It becomes especially evident when someone shows up at our home without warning, and instead of joy, we feel a tightening in our chest, a need to protect our inner space. At first glance, this reaction is often labeled as antisocial, rude, or even cold. But Jungian psychology teaches us something far deeper. This impulse to retreat is not a defect of character, but a signal from the soul itself. According to Carl Jung, the human psyche carries a profound instinct to preserve its sacred boundaries. When unexpected visitors arrive, the unconscious interprets this intrusion not simply as a social inconvenience but as a symbolic invasion of our psychic territory. In that moment, our discomfort whispers of an unspoken truth, that beneath the surface of politeness and hospitality lies a yearning for solitude, reflection, and the sanctity of being with oneself. Far from being antisocial, this need is a vital act of self-preservation, a way for the psyche to maintain balance in a world that constantly demands our attention. When we feel that subtle hesitation before opening the front door, when our hand lingers on the doorknob and our heart quietly resists, it is not laziness, nor a failure of courtesy. What is really unfolding, Jung would say, is a sacred ritual of self-preservation. In that fragile pause, we are protecting something invisible yet essential: the sanctity of our inner world. For highly sensitive souls, a home is never just four walls and a roof. It is an extension of their psyche, a living metaphor for their inner landscape. Every carefully placed object becomes a symbol, every deliberately empty corner a silence that speaks. The arrangement of a room, the way the light filters through a window, even the quiet hum of stillness, these are not trivial details, but expressions of a private language, the soul's architecture written in space and form. To cross the threshold uninvited is not simply to enter a dwelling, it is to step into the intimate terrain of another spirit. That is why resistance rises in the chest like a quiet wave, because something sacred is at stake. In Jungian thought, this moment of pause is not an act of selfishness, but a necessary defense of psychic equilibrium, a way of honoring the dialogue between inner and outer life. Jung explained this unconscious resistance as the mind's sophisticated mechanism for protecting what he called the temple of the soul, the sacred sanctuary where profound psychological transformation occurs quietly and steadily. This phenomenon has nothing to do with disliking people or harboring anger toward the outside world, rather it stems from a fundamental need to preserve one's personal energy and maintain the peaceful rhythm that allows for authentic self-expression within one's own space. In a society that frequently glorifies sociability, openness, and the willingness to welcome everyone without reservation, this instinctual desire to retreat often faces misunderstanding and criticism. People might label this behavior as selfish, standoffish, or even problematic. However, Carl Jung, one of the 20th century's most influential psychologists, offered a radically different perspective. The reluctance to open one's door does not signify a social defect but rather indicates a distinctive psychological energy structure. This internal signal communicates the necessity of stillness for achieving balance and the essential role of solitude in genuine self-healing. There is no reason to experience guilt about this natural inclination. Deep down, this response does not represent rejection of others but rather manifests as an act of profound self-acceptance. If you have ever felt remorse or out of place for not enthusiastically anticipating unexpected guests, remember that this might be part of your soul's maturation process. Not everyone requires lengthy conversations or frequent social gatherings to feel truly alive. Some individuals find their greatest vitality in silence, withdrawal, and the profound depth that only healthy solitude can provide. You are not peculiar, you are simply attuned to your inner voice, and according to Carl Jung, this is not merely acceptable but something that deserves honor and embrace. In reality, the desire to avoid others does not originate from hostility but rather constitutes a profound inner message requesting protection. But what lies beneath this message? Why do some people feel drained after social interactions while others feel invigorated? To answer this question, we must delve into the profound realm of Carl Jung's analytical psychology, where he clearly distinguishes between two fundamental types of psychological energy: introversion and extroversion. If you find value in this exploration, please show your support by liking and subscribing to help us continue providing insightful content. Now let us examine why some individuals thrive in social gatherings while you might feel completely exhausted after just one unexpected conversation. This reaction does not stem from fear of interaction. You still manage to smile and maintain good relationships, but when someone enters your personal space, something inside you instinctively withdraws. It is as if your mind gently closes an invisible door. Carl Jung, the pioneer of analytical psychology, was the first to define and organize these two fundamental concepts of introversion and extroversion. However, he was not merely discussing personality traits like shyness or sociability. What truly fascinated Jung was the flow of psychic energy. Does it move inward or does it radiate outward into the world? Extroverts direct their energy outward. They feel most alive through interaction, participation, and immersion in the external world. Social encounters energize them and they recharge through connection. Introverts, on the other hand, operate in the opposite manner. Their energy flows inward. Solitude, reflection, and quiet moments restore their vitality. It is not that they avoid the world altogether, they simply require personal space to maintain their mental peace. A deep inner conversation might be unfolding within them. Something as seemingly simple as an unexpected doorbell or casual visitor can disrupt this delicate energetic rhythm. This phenomenon represents neither arrogance nor aloofness, but rather a natural psychological need. Jung referred to this as the energy structure of the soul, something we do not consciously choose but that has been an integral part of our being from the beginning. For an introvert, a home is never merely a place to live. It functions as a cocoon for the soul, a center for healing, a sanctuary where the psyche reorganizes itself after contact with the outside world. Any intrusion, even a well-intentioned one, can easily deplete their energy and pull them away from their center. Carl Jung once observed that introversion is not a conscious choice but a disposition of the soul. So if you find yourself fatigued from excessive social interaction, if you need stillness to feel whole again, know that you are not doing anything wrong. You are simply being honest with yourself. Understanding how psychological energy flows constitutes the first step toward recognizing why some people crave silence so intensely. But there is another powerful symbolic element we need to explore, something equally sacred. This element is the home itself. In the deeper layers of Jungian psychology, a home represents more than just physical shelter. It serves as a mirror of our inner world. It is where we return to reconnect with ourselves, a space that shelters, heals, and nurtures the most profound aspects of our emotional life. When you enter your home, you are not merely leaving the outside world behind, you are returning to your inner center, the most hidden part of your being. In Jung's symbolic framework, every room, every door, every level of a house represents a part of the soul's structure. Each carries deep meaning. The bedroom functions as a shelter for intimacy and dreams, the gentle realm of the unconscious. The living room is where we wear our social mask. It reflects the persona, the role we play in front of others. The kitchen serves as the core of nourishment, where we transform raw emotions into peace and balance. Through the repetition of daily rituals, we slowly convert chaos into order, hunger into care, and emotion into meaningful life. The basement holds what is buried and hidden. It symbolizes the shadow, the unconscious parts of our psyche that we may not want to face. The attic sits at the highest level of the home, much like the higher levels of awareness in the psyche. In Jungian symbolism, this space represents the self, the true essence we move toward in our journey of individuation, where intuition, ideals, and deep insights reside beyond the roles we play every day. The front door marks the boundary between us and the world. When someone crosses that threshold, they are not just entering a physical space, they are stepping into the most private spiritual zone of our inner world. That is why if you feel uneasy when someone visits, it is not an overreaction, it is a natural subconscious response trying to protect the space where your soul is reorganizing, healing, and rebuilding itself. Jung believed that symbols like the home often speak more powerfully than words. When you feel at peace in your home, it reflects an inner world in harmony. But if you feel disturbed or unsettled by a visit, it might be an inner whisper saying this soul is still under construction and right now it is not ready to open the door. Sometimes protecting your living space is equivalent to protecting the deepest part of your being, because in Jungian depth psychology, the home is not a fortress built to shut the world out, it is a mirror reflecting your soul in every moment of presence. When someone steps through your front door, their presence is not just physical, they also touch something sacred, the spiritual world within you. And in that sacred space, certain feelings may begin to surface that you cannot easily explain. You might not understand why you feel uneasy, but more than likely that is the moment when your shadow begins to stir. Carl Jung described the shadow as the repressed part of the unconscious, the place where our darker sides reside. It contains our fears, painful memories, unspoken emotions, but it is not only negative. The shadow also holds forgotten, potential authentic parts of ourselves we once had to Conceal to feel accepted, and here is the paradox, both beautiful and challenging. The shadow does not remain silent, it appears in subtle ways: a wave of confusion from an offhand comment, a flicker of discomfort under someone's gaze, an unexplainable irritation when someone enters your home. It is not that you dislike the person, it is that their presence has unknowingly triggered a hidden wound, something you have not yet had the strength to face. Jung once wrote, "What you do not bring into consciousness will appear in your life as fate." A seemingly harmless visit can become an internal battleground where the shadow is awakened, where it reacts and resists, and you, without realizing it, feel as though something sacred within you has been violated. But the shadow is not something to be feared or eliminated, it is a gateway to healing, a mirror reflecting who you truly are. When you feel uneasy around someone, try asking yourself, what part of me are they unintentionally waking up? Sometimes the discomfort you feel when hosting others says little about them and speaks volumes about the part of yourself you are still learning to accept, and that moment can become the first step on the journey toward inner light. When the shadow appears, you are forced to face yourself, not through dramatic confrontations but through the quiet everyday moments: small talk, a forced smile, a polite glance. In the moments you try hardest to be proper, you are often wearing your social mask, and that mask, the persona, though necessary, can also be the very thing that exhausts your soul. Most of us have likely felt this before. A guest comes over and you do everything right. You smile, pour the tea, ask thoughtful questions, you are polite, warm, gracious, but deep down all you want is quiet. A part of you whispers, when will this visit finally be over? And when the door finally closes, you do not feel relieved, you feel drained, as if you have just stepped off an invisible stage where you were performing the entire time. Carl Jung called this the persona, the social mask. It is the part of the self we create to function in the outside world, at work, in relationships, in family roles. The persona is not fake, it is necessary. It helps us adapt, connect, and navigate society. But problems arise when we find ourselves wearing the mask, even in our own home, the one place where we should be able to just be ourselves. For introverts, sensitive individuals, or those deeply attuned to their inner world, maintaining the persona around others can be incredibly taxing. You are not just having a conversation, you are monitoring your tone, your facial expressions, the lighting in the room, the guest's body language, the unwashed glass in the sink, the offhand comment you wish you hadn't said. Every little detail becomes something to manage instead of something to simply let be. Jung warned the persona is necessary, it helps us function in society, but when we mistake the persona for our true self, the soul begins to cry out. Feeling resistant to hosting others does not mean you do not care about them, it means that in order to maintain the image of being kind, welcoming, and easygoing, you have had to put your real needs aside. Every forced smile, every small talk you no longer have the energy to uphold is a moment where you step away from your authentic self to play the role someone else expects. But you have the right to be real, especially in your own space. You have the right to say no without carrying the weight of guilt. When you grow tired of performing, when your soul begins to push back against the mask you wear for the world, you are standing at the threshold of individuation, the journey Jung described as the path toward becoming your true self. This journey does not pull you away from society, it brings you closer to who you are, beneath the roles, beneath the expectations, beneath the masks. According to Carl Jung, individuation is not about becoming perfect, it is the journey of becoming who you truly are, the person you were born to be, not the image that society, parents, or friends expect of you. It is the path from the false self to the authentic self, from performance to presence, from persona to essence. And this journey does not begin in noise, it begins in silence. It does not start in a crowd, it begins in solitude, in those quiet moments when you feel an unexplainable pull to turn inward, not for anyone else, not for any specific reason, simply because something deep within you is quietly calling. You may have felt this before, the urge to turn off your phone, to cancel a plan, to sit alone by the window as the late afternoon light fades into silence. In that moment you are not sad, and you are not withdrawing from the world, you are tuning into a deeper signal, the soul's whisper, gently guiding you back home. Jung once wrote, loneliness does not come from having no people around but from being unable to express what truly matters to you. So if shallow conversations leave you unsettled, if someone's presence drowns out your inner voice, it is not weakness, it is the beginning of change, it is the soul starting to move. Individuation is a long, often solitary path, but it is also a path of liberation where you stop chasing the version of yourself others want to see and begin living from the truth of who you are. That includes your light and your shadow, your wounds and your strength, your instincts and your wisdom. And that path always begins with a moment alone, a moment of stillness, when you finally hear your own voice again. Along this path of returning to your true self, there is a timeless archetype that has lived in human consciousness for ages, the Hermit. He symbolizes the soul that knows when to stop, when to retreat inward in search of its own light. When you feel the urge to close the door, to shut out the noise, to withdraw into stillness, that may be the voice of the hermit calling you. Imagine an old man with silver hair and a long beard quietly walking through the night with a lantern in hand. He does not rush, he does not seek attention, he moves through the dark forest not to escape but to find something the outer light could never reveal. In Carl Jung's depth psychology, this image represents the archetype of the hermit, a timeless symbol that lives within all of us. The hermit is not a lonely figure, nor is he lost in the world. He embodies an ancient spiritual force, quiet wisdom, a deep longing for inner understanding, and the soul's need to turn inward. When you feel the urge to cancel plans, avoid visitors, or simply retreat into the stillness of your own space, that may be your inner hermit calling. You are not turning away from the world, you are returning more deeply to yourself. The hermit appears during moments when life asks us to pause, when the noise outside grows too loud, when relationships feel shallow, when we can no longer hear our own inner voice. He reminds us, turn off the world's lights for a while, pick up your own lantern. Carl Jung believed the hermit is essential for spiritual maturity. Only in silence can we truly hear the shadow, heal old wounds, and uncover parts of the soul that have never been named. This withdrawal is not a rejection of life, it is preparation for a more meaningful way of living. When you honor the hermit's call, you are not rejecting people, you are simply stepping away from the surface so you can return with greater clarity, truth, and love. The hermit lives in silence because he knows only in stillness does the brightest light appear. If someone asks why you like being alone or why you do not feel like entertaining guests, just smile. You are not being cold, you are carrying your own lantern and stepping into the deep night. But even the hermit does not remain in solitude forever. He enters the darkness to find light and then brings that light back to the world. That too is your path. The inner journey is not about rejecting connection, it is about learning how to balance stillness and presence, honoring your sacred inner space while nurturing relationships that truly feed the soul. Let us keep going and explore one of the most delicate arts of life, the balance between solitude and meaningful connection. Carl Jung often emphasized that a healthy life is a constant dialogue between two poles, retreating inward and connecting outward. The hermit may walk deep into the forest, but he does not stay there forever. He goes to listen, to heal, to find his direction, and then he returns carrying the light he ignited in the heart of his own darkness. We are the same. There are seasons in life that demand stillness, when the mind is exhausted, the heart overwhelmed, and energy feels depleted. In these times, solitude is not isolation, it becomes medicine for the soul. But Jung also reminded us that we were not born to live forever inside a shell. Solitude only becomes healing when we use it as a stepping stone to reconnect with truth and intention. That is why the real lesson is not about choosing between isolation and immersion, it is about learning to balance both. You can create small rituals to protect your quiet. A morning without social media, a slow walk by yourself in the afternoon, a calm corner of your home that belongs only to you. These are the sacred pauses that keep your soul from being swept away by the world's constant noise. And when you are ready, you can choose connection, not out of politeness or pressure, but because it feels aligned. The ones who respect your space, who understand your silences, are the ones worthy of your presence. When your heart is open again, you do not need to explain, you do not need to apologize for wanting to be alone. As Jung once said, individuation means becoming true to yourself even when the world demands otherwise. When you live in rhythm with yourself, when solitude and connection support each other rather than compete, you stop living to please others, you begin living to care for your soul with kindness and self-respect, and that is the deepest kind of freedom.